and then tell me I'll take us live. Oh, we're live.
Yeah, I just whatever. What's up, everyone? I definitely, we're a little behind schedule because I was a little behind myself, but here we are, office hours, episode number 29, where the Bucks hopefully have a chance to take the lead against the Nets. But more importantly, we're here to talk about visuals and graphics. And
I'm gonna let that comment go.
I don't know what you're talking. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's okay. Don't worry.
But it's been a couple weeks, everyone. We appreciate you all coming through.
Welcome to Office Hours. I'm Nora. That's
Sto. Yes.
And Office Hours is something we do regularly to provide practical, useful, tangible, like real information to independent artists. So we're never going to tell you to like go talk to someone at YouTube. We're going to give you like practical shit to help you do the things that you want with your career on your schedule, on your time, and your control. Right. So you don't have to rely on other people for your success. And today we're talking about visuals and like the visual elements to putting out a creative project. So oftentimes as musicians, I know folks focus on the sound, like what's the music sound like, the production, all that kind of stuff. But we don't consume music just auditorily.
I think.
Auditorily.
I think that's the word.
Through our ears. We also consume it in all these different ways, and the visuals around a project, whether that's your branding or that's the messaging, that stuff means a lot. So we're going to get into that. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, make sure you leave a comment, and tell us, like, are there visuals that you've seen that you really like? We want to hear that. Have you seen things you don't like? We want to hear that. And as always, if you have questions, or topics you want to see us cover in a future episode, we definitely want to hear that too. So we always come back and check the comments. So let us know if you have questions or things that you want us to respond to. But yeah, where do you want to start, Sto?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have another question I want to ask later, but obviously graphics and visuals are important, but it's always good to, I guess, start from the beginning. So why are visuals important? Yeah. And why is it nowadays? Because even if you look, like, whether it's mainstream, independent, or otherwise, like, visual content it's always on the rise. I feel like everyone is making visual content. It's not like before where you had to hire someone with a camera and you had to hire someone to edit and stuff like that. Like, honestly, you can take out your phone right now and probably film a 4K video. So I feel like that there's a natural uptick in visuals, but why are they still important?
I think it's because of what I was saying earlier. Like, we consume the world and we experience the world using so many different senses. And so you want to create for your audience a multi-sensory experience. So if all they're getting is sound, and sometimes sound might be, okay, let me finish this thought. I'm like a little all over the place. If all they're getting is sound, you're missing out on the other elements that you can engage them with. So that's one. And then I think in some ways, sound is a higher ask than some of the other elements that you can play with. So if you're asking me to click through something, to be in I can't listen to your song if I'm in a meeting, but I can definitely look at the visuals with my phone here secretly while I'm sitting on Zoom or in class or in my car or whatever. Please don't text and drive or scroll and drive. But like, you think about how people experience and consume technology. And for many, many people, the visual aspect is the thing that comes first. And I do want to say, like, people have all different kinds of abilities and access. So you also want to think about that in terms of your audience. And do you have like captions to your videos so people who are hard of hearing can see that? Or are you providing alternative text so that there's descriptors for people who can't maybe see, things like that you want to think about in terms of access and inclusivity. And this is, I think, going to be an imperfect conversation around that, because that's an area where I think Sto and I are both learning. But I think those are the two things. It's like people consume and experience the world on multiple levels. So you want to take advantage of the different ways that you can engage people. If it's not sensory, then it's visual. If it's not visual, then it's auditory. If it's not auditory, then it's something else. And giving your audience multiple options to interact with the thing that you want them to interact with. And all of that is a way of getting to know you and getting to understand your project. And so not necessarily even the product, but to bring them into your ecosystem as an artist.
Right. And, you know, when it comes to, I mean, I like to tell creatives and artists to just kind of think of how you consume content. Like, regardless of the social media platform that we're on, we're constantly bombarded with, whether it's full-fledged, like, you know, episodic content or something just like a 10-second clip that shows something. Like, there's visuals everywhere. So completely excluding that from your rollout just doesn't make sense. And then the other thing is like Nora said, is like that video kind of gives you a chance to show, again, who you are outside of, again, the music, which is, like, I don't want to say secondary, but that's your main product. So it's going to take a second to get people to tune into that. So if you're able to pull them in with a video, or aesthetically or whatever, like, I feel like you usually have an easier way to then get them to click on the music or click on the extra content that you're working on. And then I wanted to ask this question next, is just like, I think a lot of artists specifically depend on music videos as their only form of visual content, when there's so many other visual things that you can do outside of just the music video. Oh yeah, my bad. I was trying to talk that to you, but
I thought you were gonna like finish it with a question.
No, I should have. Damn it.
No. But you're right. You're right. And before we jump into that, just to say, it's also, you know, the visual element allows you to add another layer to the song. So maybe the song is like a really, like, I don't mean basic in a disrespectful way, but like a really basic, like, party song. But you can use characters in the music video that maybe don't often get represented. Or, you know, you can like add elements in the video or in your artwork or whatever that add a depth and another level of conversation around it. That then spark, you know, and a really great recent example of this is Lil Nas X.
Yeah.
And the Call Me, you know, so the song Call Me By Your Name is a good song. It's whatever. But then the elements in the music video and the story that's being told in the music video added the thing that now got everybody talking. Right. In other ways, we see this where like there's a social justice element included in a song that maybe is like a super simple, straightforward song, but there's a narrative that's happening in the video. And so the video becomes another chance. It's like, it's an extra platform. And that happens not just through the video, but through the song, you know, I'm sorry, the album art, the like all the kind of different assets that you create to take something that maybe is super done and like isn't that special. And I don't mean this in any disrespectful way, but like think about how many people are releasing like a
that's exactly it
in the world, and you get to add the thing that makes it uniquely you or uniquely different. So I wanted to add that piece in before we went to your question around like, besides the video, what else can artists be doing? And I think, you know, a 3-minute, 4-minute, 5-minute long music video, that's a lot of time to have an audience to invest in you, right? You're asking, and especially depending on where they find you, they're clicking away from one platform to another. You know, they find you on Instagram, they go on your Linktree, the Linktree takes you to YouTube. Like, that's a lot of clicking even to get people somewhere to watch your video. So thinking about, can you break down the visuals into smaller, more digestible pieces? So that's things like doing a lyric video, doing 30-second like teasers of the song, that's producing like a 40-second behind the scenes, like in the booth story, right? A lot of the things that we've talked about in the creative content. Was that our last episode, creative content? Or is that our next episode?
I thought our last one was mental health.
It was. Okay, so we have an episode coming up. Actually, I can check it because we're organized like that. Our next episode, so July 6th, is about creative content ideas. So these two actually you should watch together.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the things around creative content doesn't have to be like a static Instagram post or a tweet or something that you put out in your newsletter. You can create these kind of dynamic visuals, GIFs, right? Like make GIFs, make memes, right? To add this visual element to how you tell your story that people can digest more easily. I don't know. What are some of the things you've seen, Sto?
Yeah, you took a lot of the ideas, honestly. But behind the scenes ones are some of my favorites, and I feel like it's something that a lot of artists kind of sleep on these days, especially now where it's like I'm seeing artists put out, 3 to 5 albums a year these days. Even if it's smaller projects, like show those processes. Some of my favorites actually that I'm seeing recently is like, if you're working with other people, like document that moment. I may not be the biggest fan of Dreamville or whatever, but when they put out their third like compilation or whatever, they put out a whole documentary and all of these clips of all the artists that they had called up and all the artists that were featured on or featuring on the project or whatever, and just showing what happens behind the scenes, not even just in terms of music creation, but the organic conversations that were happening between those artists and stuff like that. So all of that stuff, again, allows your supporters and users to see what they usually don't. Whether you're getting ready to perform or getting ready to put out a project, like there's a whole process that your fans don't see. And even now where like, I feel like we're still in this weird age where, casual listeners sometimes just think that artists just popped up with an album that they made in 3 days or whatever. But no, there's a whole process that goes behind it. So, show that. Another one that I kind of like seeing, that I've been seeing over the last like couple years, like 3 to 5 years, maybe, is just like, just art inspired by the music. Maybe not necessarily a video or anything from the artist themselves, but like a separate artist who like listened to the music, interpreted it, and like made their own creation behind it. I don't see nearly enough artists taking advantage of like, just, I don't like using the word fandom, but just like you have supporters out here that actually do like and express themselves through what they've heard from you already, like showing that side of things. Or even, again, if you made a song and that made you want to paint or do something like that, like put that up. I'm trying to think of like other visual. Go ahead.
No, because I think this is an important one. And so one, if you want like fandom art, ask for it. Yeah. Like let them know. But I also think this is a key opportunity to be intentional about who are artists, visual artists that you like.
Yeah,
that you can
exactly.
reach out to and collaborate with and say, hey, I have this project coming out. Can we work together on this element of my project? And I think sometimes artists, musicians leave the visual aspect as an afterthought, or, oh, I didn't have a budget for it.
Yeah.
But what I hope you all take away from this is to think about the visual element as part of, or that design element as part of, as a critical part of the project design and rollout project. And if you think about it, right, like the album cover is often like people buy projects, they buy vinyl just because of the album cover. They put it up on their walls. It becomes decorative, right? There's value in that. And it has nothing to do with what the music sounds like. And so thinking about that from the beginning and having that kind of collaborative process with someone not only expands who can be on your team, right? But also another element for someone to say, oh, this is interesting and I can engage with you. So this is something that came up recently with a client of mine who had headshots taken. And we were talking about what are the different kinds of headshots artists, because I think that's one of the things that we don't think about when we're talking about like visual elements. Do you have good photos of yourself? I see a lot of artists who just put their face as the cover art. Your face is cute, but like, does that mean anything?
Not like that. I don't know if I'm buying a record. If I see that on
I don't know you. Is that enough for me to put you on my wall or like buy merch with your face on it, versus thinking about what is the story I want to tell with this project and how can we communicate that visually? So maybe that's two questions. But so let's stop there. Cover art. What do you think about that? And then we'll talk about the photography.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that and like a piece of what you were saying before. I was like looking up on Instagram. If you're familiar in the independent, like underground hip hop space, this artist, his name is Coppington, with an X instead of an O. He's done cover art for so many of like of what some consider to be like the best in the underground scene now, whether it's Conway the Machine, whether it's Big Ghost, Shay Noir, I think, did cover art for her, like all of these cats. And I didn't realize it until maybe a month ago or so, because if you go through his Instagram, it's just all types of artwork that's different, and it's just a different expression outside of like the music. And I now see the artists that he's working with now, they're like printing up like, copies of that album art to sell as merch and like frame it up and stuff like that. So, link up with a visual artist that's willing to take your vision seriously, because I think, it's obviously there's the whole like aesthetic to someone just seeing it in passing, but you really are dealing with, again, it's just a different kind of art. And I think sometimes, at least musical artists sometimes kind of forget that. So I do think album art is important. I definitely I'll say even like as much as 20% of the time, if I see a vinyl record that has a cool cover, I'll buy it just because of that. So that's important. And the only other thing I wanted to slide in there about that is that for a lot of people, that album art is everyone's first impression. That's going to be the first thing they see, even if they're not a fan. They'll see that. So sometimes that it genuinely can be the determinant of whether someone clicks on something or passes it up. If it looks dope, I can say that for sure. If the album cover looks dope, I will at least, look up something or try to catch a snippet or something. But if it's awful, I'm out of here.
Well, and there's a lot that you communicate without ever having to say anything.
Exactly.
So if I had this conversation with someone a little while ago on Clubhouse randomly, who was like, yo, I'm so feminist. I'm here to save the women. And so he was like, check out this project. It's like for the women. I was like, all right, cool. Like, is this the cover art? And the cover art featured like half naked girls with their own, like you couldn't see their faces. They were super small. He was like front and center. And so,
nailed it.
And again, nothing wrong with the half naked part, but definitely something wrong with like, I can't see your face and you're like in the background where he's right. And so to think about like, he didn't have to say anything. That cover art told me so much that I needed to know about the messaging, who this artist is, what their values are, X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. Right. And so when you think about like, what are the visuals you use? What are the fonts? What are the colors? How do things get positioned? There is a lot that we're conveying without ever saying anything. And so if you're trying to attract a certain audience, or you're trying to let your community know that you value the same things that they value, or you have common interests or things like that, those are things that you can call to and rely on to communicate that, so that without them ever having to press play, they can already start to make the decision that, oh, Sto is one of us, or we are one of Sto, and to see that like recognition in that. And so that's the part, and maybe this gets a little like art history and like art design and stuff like that, but understand that's where like a good designer or an artist collaborator can help you think through these things, so that you're telling a story with all the different kind of elements in your project, to then put that in front of the people that you want to put it in front of. Were you going to say something?
Nah. Oh. Unless you were.
No, well, I was going to transition to ask about the like photos and how important it is to have like photos as an element, and specifically like good headshots that you can send in for like
right.
or bio or and how do you decide what images and photos to use, and what especially so because you do, I know, a lot of like press releases and stuff like that. What should artists be thinking about in that sense?
Yeah, for me, it's really just about having a professional looking photo. It doesn't necessarily, like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it, because sometimes I feel like artists I either get like the selfies, or which is not like, that should not be in a press release, people. Like, there's nothing wrong with selfies, but like if you're putting together like a professional press release or something like that, like there shouldn't be selfies in your thing. Or sometimes, and like sometimes I guess like background shots, but you know, in some of the shoots that whether I've been a part of or like watched or whatever, I think some of it is like actually about in capturing your personality.
Mm-hmm.
Like, of course, all of us, you know, like have a good smile and all that jazz and got friends that we can, you know, put into pictures. But I do think it's really important to like, and not, I mean, whether it's personality or like a certain concept or something like that. Like, I really think about To Pimp a Butterfly, like the photos that Kendrick did for that. It wasn't just you know, all right, here's me with my chain and a bunch of cars around me. You know, it was very specific to the concept of the record and stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying you have to put together this, you know, make sure it's like, you know, ready to be submitted to an art museum. I'm not saying all that, but just what captures whether it's your brand, whether it's, you know, the concept of a record that you're getting ready to put out or an album, whether it's, again, your personality, and just embracing that too, you know, just something, again, that allows a user or again, a newcomer. I feel like I say that so much, is like a newcomer should be able to slide over and see your pictures and really get a grasp of who you are as a person, not just as an artist, but, you know, outside of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, you're not taking school photos, right?
Yeah. Right.
What's important is that we see your face. Mm-hmm. So like, think about that. Think about the lighting, because that's what you want people to recognize. But besides that, like, if you want to, like, it doesn't have to be static, right? Thinking about what's
static. That's such a good word.
Photo, yeah. That you're communicating, and that things like what you're wearing, the color and the mood of the photo. Is it warm? Is it cooler? All those kind of little details are going to there's so much that we communicate non-verbally, and a photo of you, which is often going to be the first impression of who you are as an art. You know, are you holding your instrument? Are you playing your instrument? Is your instrument like, you know, the guitar over your back? Like, all those little kind of details communicate so much. So having, and yeah, it doesn't have to be a fancy, like, take your phone, take your best friend, go to the park where there's you know, good lighting, and just do a photo shoot. Like, it doesn't have to be like, if you can't afford it or it feels like too much, that's okay. Start, as we always tell you, start with what you can. Start with what's accessible. Start with, and like, play around with it. Or ask your fans, hey, I need to take photos.
Want to help? Like, some people will jump at the bit. Right, exactly.
Right? They like want to, so it's really, and that's another way to kind of build that relationship with your audience, and you invite them, and then when you use the photo, you say, shout out to so-and-so who came and took the photos with me, and now you're like making them part of your team, so they feel the buy-in and the investment and all that stuff. But thinking about, like, do you have 4 or 5 solid photos that you can use that you can put in a rotation for when you're doing a press kit? And ideally, there's like, you know, a couple of you in your face. There's a couple of you in like, every artist has the mic, like, performing piece.
Exactly.
Oh, that's weird.
What in the world? What just happened?
I don't know.
Oh, let me check.
Okay,
okay, there we go. Jeez.
I lost my train of thought. But have
the different types of photos, the performing photos.
Have those photos and play around with them.
Right.
You know, and they can change and they'll evolve as you do. That's an easy thing to kind of add to your asset folder. Is some photos of you that you and your friends went and took one day. Or if you want to hire a professional photographer, grab 3 or 4 or 5 of your other artist friends,
right,
and see if you can get a group deal with a photographer that you all want to work with, right? So this is where the pooling of resources can be really, really helpful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, again, we're not saying like you have to, you know, pretend you're shooting a cover for ESPN magazine. Like, it really doesn't have to be that serious. It really is about capturing who you are and your personality for whoever. And I always tell artists, like, honestly, and I'm not saying like get so obsessive with it where you're not even living your life, but like, you know, you should, like, if you're filming a music video, there should be honestly, well over 100 photos. Like, if you're out performing or whatever, like, it's same thing. Like, there should be so many for you to pick from. And obviously, again, you want to use your best ones for the EPK or your press release or whatever. But again, even for Instagram or whatever, like, just having those photos to be able to throw out there, so for when you know, don't necessarily want to go out of your way to take a picture, like, you just have some in the chamber that maybe you haven't put out yet.
Actually, those like candids, right? Like the bloopers, the goofy ones, people love that shit. Like,
exactly,
that's the stuff that's like shows me your personality. You add a quirky caption. It doesn't have to always, right? Like, what do we tell you all the time? It doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
The things that you probably think are like, oh God, are the ones that folks want to see the most.
Exactly. And that's with anything, whether it's photos, video clips. Again, we mentioned this before with, like, if you're in the studio, like, I get it. We're all supposed to be, you know, yeah, that's right, I got the hardest bars you ever heard in my entire life. But sometimes they don't come out like that. And it's okay if they don't come out like that. So, you know, post those up. I've seen so many clips of artists just messing up lines, and it's absolutely hilarious. Again, bring them behind the scenes, because it makes your supporters feel special too. We all, you know, freak out every time Beyonce shows, like, oh my God, this is how I made this. What was it? The Homecoming documentary, I think that was on Netflix for a minute. Like, I watched that like 3 times. Like, it's crazy to see the work that goes into that, but you should show that work too, because you're putting in just as much work, if not more so, because chances are you're doing it by yourself. So
you are, hold on. You definitely are putting in more work than Beyonce. Beyonce has like a gazillion people who are doing everything for her. Please don't ever compare yourself to Beyonce. You
okay, definitely don't do that. Definitely don't compare yourself to Beyonce. But hopefully you guys get the point. Show those processes and stuff. It's important.
And so actually, on not next week, but the first Tuesday of July, our next office hours episode is all about creative content. So what we hope you take away from today is really just think about your visual elements in a way that maybe you weren't thinking about them before. And then come back next week or next episode, and we'll get into some like more specific kind of creative content ideas for your socials and campaign rollout and things like that. Our last episode is about mental health and building your support system. So if you haven't checked that out, also go back and check that. Go back and check that episode out, as well as all the other ones that we have. It's been a long day. Yeah, and make sure you like, you subscribe, you leave a comment. We're here to support you. So tell us what we could do to better show up for you. Sto and I both do one-on-one consulting as well. So if you need a little extra support, don't ever hesitate to reach out. Final words, Sto?
No, you nailed it. Subscribe, leave a like, share with your friends. Definitely come back here in 2 weeks, because we will be talking about kind of like the bigger picture when it comes to content and stuff like that. Because I genuinely do believe like that's a big part of promoting a record that I think a lot of creators, or anything, like not even just promoting a record, promoting anything, a product, whatever, that a lot of creatives are missing out on. So I think it's going to be super important. Make sure you come back here in 2 weeks, and yeah, stay safe out here. Stay hydrated. Y'all ain't drinking your water.
Do some self-care. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.